200. Yep, that's the number of times you get lied to every single day without even realizing it. And we aren't just talking about master criminals in an interrogation room here. We're talking about your best friend lying about where they went last night, your family making up stories about who ate your leftovers, or maybe your boss giving you a fake reason for rejecting a project. But today, we're flipping the script. Today, you become a human lie detector.
Okay, let's take a quick look at the agenda for your spy training. We'll be moving step by step through establishing normal behavior, spotting the hidden cues, mastering the art of questioning, setting conversational traps, and finally, trusting your gut feeling.
Starting off with Section 1, establishing normal behavior, otherwise known as the baseline trick.
So before you can catch a lie, you absolutely have to learn how to read people like an FBI agent by establishing a baseline. You see, catching a lie isn't about looking for universal Hollywood-style signs of guilt. It's actually about spotting a sudden deviation from a person's specific, secret, normal mode. You first need to identify exactly how they act when they're totally relaxed. Like, how do they usually sit? Do they talk fast? Do they normally hold eye contact? Once you've got that locked in, you just watch for the red flags. If a famously fast talker suddenly slows way down, or someone who usually looks you straight in the eye is suddenly staring at the floor, you know instantly that something is up.
All right, so once you know their baseline, it's time for the 5-second rule. This is where you start looking for those rapid physiological signs that their brain is just scrambling to build a lie. When you ask a tricky question, you want to watch them like a hawk for exactly 5 seconds. Not 4, not 6, exactly 5. Why? Well, because that's the exact window when their brain is fighting the absolute hardest to formulate a believable lie. During this really brief, intense window, their body will often completely betray their mouth.
And what exactly are you looking for in those 5 seconds? You're looking for specific physical tells, touching their face, looking away, pausing for just a bit too long, or maybe a sudden change in their voice pitch. Now, to be fair, one of these signs on its own might mean absolutely nothing. But if you observe 2 or more of these signs in those initial 5 seconds, boom, you've caught them, even if they think they're expert liars.
But hey, it's not just their physical body you need to watch, it's their vocabulary. Listen really closely for the word trick. This is when they start using wishy-washy words like maybe, I think, probably, or I guess. Liars use these weak words to build themselves an escape route, mostly because they're absolutely terrified of committing to a firm lie. So if they say, I think I was probably at home, instead of confidently saying I was at home, that hesitation is a massive red flag.
Let's look at how a carefully calculated shift in your questioning can force a liar to reveal themselves. Take the magic question approach. An amateur asks a really simple question like, did you go out last night? That's way too simple. A liar can just say no. But the detective question, what made you stay out so late last night, completely changes the game. By assuming the premise that they were out late, you force them to invent a whole story. And making up detailed stories on the spot is exactly where liars mess up.
Okay, now you're
Section
ready to
4.
set active traps to break their fabricated narrative. Consider the double check trap. It is honestly genius. At point 1, you ask a really simple verifying question. You went to the movies yesterday, right? They say yes. Then you just wait. At point 2, roughly 10 minutes later, you casually ask, so, what movie did you see yesterday? This trap relies on the psychological fact that liars easily forget the fake stories they told just 10 minutes prior. They might stumble, pause, or suddenly say they actually didn't end up seeing a movie at all. Caught.
The crucial psychology to understand here is that truth-tellers remain perfectly consistent because they're simply remembering real events. Reality just doesn't require extra brain power to recall. Liars, on the other hand, become wildly inconsistent because they are trying to remember fake stories. And fake stories are incredibly hard to keep straight in your working memory.
Which leads us to a technique that almost feels unfair to use, the interrupt trick. Step 1, you just let them tell their story. Step 2, right in the middle of it, you quickly jump in and interrupt with a random chronological question about what happened before their story began. Like, wait, what were you doing right before you decided to go to the store? Step 3, you literally just watch them short-circuit. Lying takes a ton of processing power. When you scramble their brain by forcing them to juggle their fake timeline and your new, unexpected question at the exact same time, they just can't handle it. They'll either get visibly confused or just start telling a completely different story.
You also need to watch out for the topic swap trick. When your questions start getting a little too close to the truth, a liar will intuitively hit the panic button. They'll try to run away from the conversation by suddenly changing the subject to something completely random like, hey, did you see that funny video? If they do this because they're scared, your move is super simple. just gently pull them back. Say, oh, we can talk about that later, but first, tell me more about, and just watch how deeply uncomfortable they get.
Now imagine testing your subject with this scenario. What happens if you slip a completely fake detail into their story? For example, what if you casually mention, oh, even though you said it was raining that day, when in fact they never mentioned the rain at all?
The reaction to that fake detail tells you everything you need to know about who is sitting in front of you. A truth teller will correct you immediately. They'll just say, no, it wasn't raining. But a liar? Liars are so incredibly paranoid that correcting you will somehow shatter their fragile illusion that they'll almost always just go along with your fake detail. They will agree to something completely fabricated just to survive the conversation without raising suspicion. And finally, Section 5, trusting your gut feeling. Because, learning the mechanics and the psychological tricks is really only half the battle. As the famous saying goes, if something feels off, it probably is. The final piece of your playbook is learning to synthesize all these technical observations, the baseline deviations, the 5-second physical tells, the wishy-washy words, with your own human intuition. Combine the traps and tricks we've covered today with your innate instincts, and you become a truly unstoppable lie detector.
So I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought. You now have the detective's playbook. Out of the 200 lies waiting for you out there today, whose fake story are you going to unravel first? I double dare you to step out into the real world and test out your newly acquired, slightly devious investigative superpowers. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Use your new skills wisely, and we'll catch you next time.